I love American cheese. It's gooey.
Stop. You can't say cheese. Say this instead.
Seriously? Okay. I love pasteurized processed cheese food. Yeah, it doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, does it? But why can't I just call this cheese? To answer that, we need to figure out what cheese is and why this isn't cheese. According to the FDA and honestly every cheese snob you've ever met, real cheese starts with milk. You add bacteria and enzymes, and presto, cheese. But there's a problem with cheese. It spoils fast, especially in the early 1900s when most homes didn't even have electricity, let alone a fridge. Enter James L. Kraft, a Canadian immigrant in Chicago who looked at a pile of spoiled cheese and thought there has to be a better way. In 1916, James L. Kraft got to work at inventing a longer-lasting cheese. He took real cheddar, often the leftovers from other batches, ground it up, heated it, and added some sodium phosphate. It's an emulsifier. Add a bit of salt and water, and you've got something new. Cheese that stays fresh, slices perfectly, and melts like a dream, or what we now call American cheese. As time marched on, the original recipe expanded, and so did the ingredients list. So let's take a look at what's actually inside a classic American cheese slice today. It still starts with cheddar cheese. That's cultured milk, salt, and enzymes. But now there's also regular milk powder, skimmed milk powder, anhydrous milk fat, milk protein concentrate, and whey for extra richness and protein, calcium phosphate and sodium phosphate, two emulsifying salts that keep everything smooth and melty. There's a little extra salt, modified food starch for stability, and lactic acid for a bit of tang. For that signature colour, they use annetto and oleo resin paprika, a basically concentrated colouring from plants. And finally, natamycin, a natural mold inhibitor, keeping everything fresh. Now, here's the important part. Once you add all those extra ingredients, you cross a legal line. You see, it's not technically cheese anymore, and rightly so. The FDA won't let manufacturers market this as just cheese. That's why this slice of pasteurized processed cheese food is called pasteurized processed cheese food. But let's look at these classifications a little more closely. First, we have just cheese. This is the blueprint. If the label says cheese, it's the classic recipe. Milk, salt, cultures, enzymes. That's it. Next, we have pasteurized processed cheese food. Now, this is where the line starts to blur, and the category American cheese usually presides. Here, at least 51% of the product must be real cheese by weight. And the rest, well, that's where you find all the extras. Whey, skim milk, milk fat, milk protein, concentrate, stabilizers. Then there's pasteurized processed cheese product. Now, we're in Wild West territory here. There's no minimum cheese content required by the FDA. If it doesn't meet the rules for cheese, or maybe cheese food, maybe it's got too much water or too many fillers, it's gonna land here. And finally, imitation cheese. 0% real cheese. No milk, no cheese, just oil, starch, flavorings, and colors. Now, this is usually for people who can't or don't want to eat dairy, and it's the cheapest slice possible. So why are the names all so similar? Look, this isn't an accident. Every time cheesemakers found a new loophole, adding fillers, getting creative with the science, the FDA responded with a new rule, a new category, and of course, a new name. But here's the thing, each name is just close enough to cheese to keep us comfortable. but just technical enough to keep the lawyers off of their backs. You see, it's a delicate dance between food law and marketing. The companies want you to feel like you're buying real cheese, but the FDA wants legal accuracy. So you get this kind of parade of names. Processed cheese, cheese food, cheese product. They sound almost identical, but they mean very different things technically. So, are they too similar? Probably. Other countries, especially in Europe, are really protective over their cheeses. In fact, what we know as American cheese isn't allowed to be called cheese at all. In France, they call it a melting slice, which, depending on how precious you are over cheese, could be considered a more accurate description. But look, does it really matter? Whether you call it cheese food, American cheese, or even a melting slice, it's gooey and yummy, and that's all that matters, right? So, say pasteurized processed cheese food.